My name is Terry Brown, and I'm the program chairperson. So we're super excited that you're here at the national meeting, and we know you're going to have an awesome time in Nashville. We're going to have some more people trickle in from our exhibit hall, and so it's going to be a great conference. So a couple announcements. Number one, if you did not get a program evaluation, please pick one up at the registration booth. I know we didn't have them out yesterday, but they're out there now. Another new thing that is new this year is that on your badge, you now have a colored ribbon that says which region you're in. There's a map out by the registration booth that corresponds to that, and so we wanted to do that so people know what area in the country everyone's coming from, so you can make some new friends who are local to you. We want to encourage everyone to be using our hashtag that will be scrolling. It's AAKP 2016, and make sure that you're tweeting, Instagramming, Facebooking, and letting everyone know what an awesome time you're having. So I first want to thank our sponsors for this event. We have Amgen, Dialysis Clinics Incorporated, Next Stage Medical Incorporated, Baxter International, Fresenius Medical Care, Hansa, Merck, Rockwell Medical, Sandoz, Vanderbilt Center for Kidney Disease, Alliant Health Solutions, Arbor Research Collaborative for Health, Medical Education Institute, Proteon, and Tennessee Kidney Foundation. So let's give a hand to all of our awesome sponsors. Okay, so before we start things off here this morning, we wanted to learn a little bit more about you all. So for patients and their care partners only, is there anyone here from outside the United States who traveled to get here? Who thinks they can? Oh, we got one patient or caregiver. Oh, I sure couldn't hear you. Oh, sponsor. Okay, but where are you from, just so we know? Oh, from the Netherlands. Awesome. That's great. So for our patients in the room, who thinks they've come from the furthest away? I know I've met people from Arizona and Massachusetts already. California. Oh, we might have some dueling California folks. Yes, sir. California. Seattle trumps California, I think. Anyone else who thinks they might have flown or traveled the furthest to get here? Sounds like Seattle is. Oh, wait, what, sir?
Seattle by way of New Mexico.
Unfortunately, we didn't ask about how well your travel went, but excellent. So we've got Sam from Washington. So that's awesome. It's great to have such a gathering of patients and their family members from around the country. So how many of you have been to this meeting, the AAKP meeting, more than 3 times? Okay, great. So look around if you have not been here before or this is your first meeting, and make sure you introduce yourself to these people because they are truly the experts. What about more than 5 times? More than 10 times? Oh, we still got a couple hands. What about Yes, ma'am? 10 times. Awesome. Anyone can beat her? Great. Patience. But Dr. Finn. Excellent. So we're just handing out a couple prizes for this. And then let me ask you this also. How many people here have been on treatment for kidney disease more than 3 years? For dialysis, transplant, Okay, so more than 3 years, got a good number of hands. What about more than 5 years? More than 10 years? So again, if you're new to this, look around and these are the people you want to meet. What about more than 12 years? Okay, still see some hands. 15. I'll go right to 20. 25. Oh, still see 20. Oh, how many years? 26. 25. 26 is our most veteran patient in the room, so awesome. So we encourage you all to have a great time. Please let myself as well as the AAKP staff know if we can help you at all, and welcome to our conference.
Well, I'm under instructions to keep it light and keep it fun from Terry, so not something I do well. I am a trained auctioneer and I work in politics, so I'll talk real fast and I won't promise you anything. My name's Paul Conway. I serve as president of the American Association of Kidney Patients, and it's an honor to be here among fellow patients. I've managed my disease since I was 16 years old when it was found in a sports physical. I did 2 years of home dialysis on PD, and I'm 19 years out on my kidney transplant. And thank you. And of many things I've done in life, I have to say that for me, AAKP is the highest honor. And it really is a sense of after you get a transplant, and those of you who have gone through this, you have a compulsion to give back. And this organization is absolutely fantastic as a vehicle to do that. We wouldn't be here today without the hard work of our staff and our executive director, Gary Green. You'll meet all these folks. But I have to say, I am kind of high maintenance. I am kind of in overdrive all the time, and I have made their life difficult going into this. So I apologize, but thank you very much for making it a great event. I do that in advance. So let me just set the course for what we're about to do for the next couple of days so people have everything in context. And I think this is very important. At this point, you see a screen up here, and these are some simple things that we're going to get across to you very quickly. Right off the bat, what is AAKP? And this is fundamentally important for you folks to know what we are. We're an independent patient organization. That means that we are not owned by anybody. In politics, you would say that we are not AstroTurf, meaning no one controls us. We're very independent. We're a patient majority board, and we have a superb medical advisory board. But everything that we do is very deliberative. Everything we do with the resources that we get is very deliberative. And you have a very engaged board. These are some of the folks that we seek to attract. The bottom 2 points, you can see an increasing interest among family, caregivers, professionals in the medical profession, but increasingly so those who are in the pharmaceutical industry, the diagnostics industry, and in the device industry, because they really understand that the patient voice and patient impact has a clear substantive outcome in what they're doing, and especially in terms of what the government is interested in. We're a great vehicle for that. Our legacy, AAKP goes back to 1969. A handful of patients got together in Kings County Hospital up in New York. They understood that the dialysis treatment that they were getting at that time was quite rare. They wanted to make certain that that opportunity was provided to as many patients as possible. That group became the nucleus behind an effort by many people, including doctors, to push for a piece of legislation that was a modification to the Social Security Act, which led to what you now know as the End-Stage Renal Disease Program. That's our legacy. It's a legacy of patients helping patients, allied with others, to make substantive change. It's over 1 million lives that have been impacted since that legislation passed in 1972. That's who we are, that's what our roots are, and we don't forget it. You're part of that. So what is our purpose? Our purpose is to educate patients, and our purpose is also to advocate for policy. They're not mutually exclusive goals. So all of the opportunities that you have the next couple of days at this patient conference, this is an educational opportunity. It's also a training opportunity for us, because we will train you how to be effective, how to channel your voice, and how to be a better advocate, not just for your own care, because I think it's important that kidney patients are known to be people that are not self-interested. Actually, in many ways, we're selfless, because we understand the generation that comes after us is the generation we can impact now with our voice. That's important, because I don't think every sector in society can say that, but we'll help you get there. So this is what we do to honor the legacy. There'd be a lot of training opportunities for you on social media, on how to engage with your doctors, how to engage with social workers, that type of thing. But see that all of this goes back to that handful of patients, and everything that we do, we're tied to it. How do we operate? So people see a lot of different organizations. You get flyers in the mail, hey, join this, join that. We have a very core set of principles, and we don't waver on them. We elevate the patient voice in national policy discussions and debates. We try to be very engaged in the life cycle development of medicine, of devices, and diagnostics. We try to channel the patient voice into those things, and we let the government know that we're doing it. We protect the unique relationship between patients and their doctors, and we try to maintain independence in everything we do. So when we raise our voice on Capitol Hill or to the White House or any other entity, and you'll hear a lot of these things over the next couple of days, they know that when we walk in the door, it's AAKP. This is a patient organization. Oftentimes we're asked, hey, you guys aren't X, and you can fill in the blank, and we proudly say, no, we're not, and we're listened to. But we don't waver on that. The other thing we don't do is we don't play games with government officials, elected or non-elected. We operate on the principle of no surprises. If we agree, we'll tell you. If we disagree, we'll ask for a meeting. We'll tell you, you won't see us in a newspaper attacking somebody. We don't do that. It's a long ball game, and it has been one, but you're part of that, and we don't want to ruin the reputation. So how do we operate? Everything that we do is an integrated strategy. All elements of every function of AAKP all are driven off the strategy and the principles. So we weigh everything we do, our education programs, how we advocate, who we align ourselves with in terms of collaborations and alliances, how we communicate on social media, what tactics that we develop and use, how we do development activity, how we seek out funds, what types of funds we'll accept, who we recruit for our board of directors, and they're really absolutely fantastic people. You'll meet them over the next couple of days. Some of them are kind of crazy, like Richard Knight, but he blames it on the meds. All of these things are designed to, hey, Richard, I do too. It doesn't really work with all these doctors because they know the truth. But everything that we do stems back to that strategy and our legacy. And I want to be really clear about that when you're listening to our speakers, because even the speaker selection is designed to be strategic. So in our advocacy operations, a lot of times you'll see people aligned for this bill or against that bill. We're pretty judicious in how we do that, but we're not mean. We'll disagree on principle, but we're bipartisan in our relationships, and we're nonpartisan in how we operate. And that has given us great credibility over the years. We can walk in any door, people will know it's an independent voice. In the executive branch, we target a lot of different agencies. You'll see some of them, CDC, CMS, FDA, NIH. In Congress, we target both sides of the Hill, the Senate and the House, regardless of who the leadership is. And we maintain a strong set of relationships across career officials and appointed officials in Washington because, amazingly, it's not all about politics. The number of people in Washington who have family members who have kidney disease is enormous. And when you go in and you start talking about this, sometimes, and there's a fantastic elected representative up in Baltimore who met us in turn and said, you know something, my father died of this disease. I like to eat all these types of foods and listed them. Do you guys have something on nutrition? Elected member of Congress, knows it's in his family, and we got him our delicious guide, our recipe guide, and it made an impact on him. Now when we ask for a meeting, he understands that, we're a great educational group, and we're not going in with an agenda. Who are the stakeholders in healthcare? You can take a look at this slide. I think everybody understands this, but oftentimes people forget that it's not just you, the patient, and it's not just the Congress. It's all these different entities have a role in healthcare. So AAKP engages with many, many different organizations, and you'll meet some fine people that represent them over the next 2 days here. Some of the challenges, I think everybody kind of knows this, but the first speaker this morning will really dive into this. Not much has changed in many ways in dialysis. There's kind of a status quo. We intend to disrupt that. That word is popular right now. You will understand the intent of where we're going. But there's a real question on whether or not the government itself has the capacity to stay up with technological innovation and to get drugs, devices, and diagnostics into the marketplace fast enough. They're changing. Our voice helps propel that and make it better for the next generation that comes along. Quick snapshot on kidney disease, and this is really what it's all about when you get down to it. This is the dollar cost to the taxpayers. End-stage renal disease program is the only protected patient entitlement program in the United States. It's the only one. In the crunch in the years ahead on budget, you can count on the fact that decisions made in Washington about how money is spent will impact this program. That's why we have to get more innovative in the technologies. We have to be smarter in terms of how we weigh in our voice on drug development at the FDA, and we need to be supportive of those people who come up with diagnostics that speed changes into the marketplace faster. Last point here, just so you understand where we're going in terms of the bigger picture. All of these things right now are pressure in the world of politics and in the world of policy on the government and on stakeholders to drive change. You hear these terms, big data, all this type of stuff. These are the major forces that are out there. A lot of the experts that will speak to you here at this conference know these things, and they're trying to harness them. The last point is probably the most important. Some of the most powerful voices for implementing change and driving change are right here in this room. How many people are on Facebook? Okay, the average number of fans is 142 to 180. Times it by the number of people in this room, and you can see the impact that this event has. That's why we put so much emphasis on social media and the targeting of social media. At this point, let me stop and introduce our first speaker, who's a real innovative person and a real pioneer. Hopefully, out of this session, you'll be inspired, not just because of the substance that he offers, but also because of the tone and the patient focus that he has. We're honored to have Dr. Robert Gibney. And Dr. Gibney was our Medal of Excellence Award winner last year for AAKP. He comes to us from Waco, Texas, where he runs clinics that serve approximately 800 patients from Austin to Dallas. He's a hardcore advocate of the patient. He understands that the highest quality of life for patients and the kidney community as a whole needs to be re-examined in terms of how we approach the delivery of care. He's brought the concept of empowered care to his clinics, putting patients in the forefront and allowing them to see the dialysis machine, touch the dialysis machine, and be more of an active, engaged patient than they ever have been before. This radical change led to dramatic increases in quality and dramatic decreases in patient hospitalizations and mortalities. It's because of Dr. Gibney's passion for helping patients live their lives as the best lives possible that we gave him the Medal of Excellence this year. We're very honored to have Dr. Gibney with us today, and without further ado, I want to turn it over to somebody who is a friend, an ally, and somebody who has your best interest every day he goes to work. Dr. Gibney.
Give me some thing about time so I know where I am. How much time did I have? 45 minutes? 30 minutes or what?
30 minutes.
What?
30 minutes.
Okay. All right. That's not the right one. I mean, that's the one earlier. Yeah, that's the one. Okay, perfect. Thanks very much. Can everybody hear me? Yes? It's a treat and a thrill to be here today because you guys are clearly the drivers of where we should be going, and it's an honor and a thrill to be here. So empowered kidney care is a new term that probably most of you have not heard. And what we mean by empowered kidney care is that we're giving something to the patient, and we're whether you're in the CKD arena, where you have some early on problem with decreased renal function, or you're in the dialysis or transplant arena, that whole thing should be a continuum of how do we give something to the patient to make things better. I should apologize, I guess, to start with. It's the impression. I come from Waco, Texas. We have 12 dialysis units. We have 800 patients, and so we take care of a lot of people. And for 40 years, we did it wrong. It's a long time to do something wrong. The good news, I guess, is at least after 40 years, you figured out what you were doing was wrong. And we've now radically changed to a different approach, we think, which I think you'll find most attractive. The journey started in 2006 when a friend of mine took me to the Institute of Healthcare Improvement, IHI's first time to be at their meeting annual meeting in Orlando, Texas. And it's kind of like drinking the Kool-Aid or having a come-to-Jesus experience. It's real simple. You come away and you're inspired and you realize that we need to learn how to do continuous quality improvement. So I get back home and I come to my group of nephrologists and I show them our data in a critical way for the first time, which shows them that we're pretty mediocre doctors. Not great doctors, mediocre. Now you can imagine the response was, they threw me out and said, obviously you interpreted the data wrong, and we are great doctors. So I went back and I kind of redid the presentation. The data was the same, and they still were mediocre, but they weren't as mad. And I said, we have two choices. You can either stay mediocre or you can change. So we went through a process over the last 10 years of learning how to do quality improvement. And now we're in the top 10% in the country, and we're happy to be there because it's what you should be doing anyway. So we were late getting there, but we got there. Along on this journey, you then enter the arena of patient-centered care, and that becomes real interesting. And then Don Berwick was a great leader teaching us all this stuff. And then Maureen, he then went on to becoming a consultant and doing all sorts of great things. Maureen Bisignano took over for him. So in 2011, she gave this, the keynote address, and she included a short video of when she was visiting Jönköping, Sweden, of how they did dialysis there that showed empowered dialysis, where the patients basically did everything. And they were happy and joyful, and the whole thing was great. And we thought, So I'm sitting there in a room with 7,000 people, and I'm not sure how many nephrologists are there, but I felt like I was the only one. So I got to come back and think, now I can ignore that or I can do something. So in 2013, Christian Farman, who was the first empowered patient at their clinic, and Brett Marie came to Waco, Texas and spent a week. So when they walked in the first day, and we spent the whole week getting there at 5:30 or 6 in the morning when the patients first got on, and spending the entire day at each clinic. And before they walked in the dialysis facility, they were simply looking, and they said, what do you think you're doing wrong? And again, I said, I'm not sure what I'm doing wrong, but we've been doing it wrong for 40 years. And they said, would you be willing to change? And we said, well, yeah, I guess. And they said, well, how about two things? Turn the machines to face the patient. Okay. And then give the patients permission to touch the machines. Well, I guess we could think about that. That might be, it sounds kind of radical, but I guess we could consider that. So that began the journey. And it took a while to get everybody on board that we could pursue this approach. So by 2015, we began in earnest. You'll see the data that I'll show you because, as you know, my great mentor and the best nephrologist and just the most extraordinary and talented man in the world is here tonight, or here today. Ray Hakim always tells everybody, in God we trust, all others show data. So we have some data to show because I didn't want Ray to become violent and throw me out of the room. So anyway, that's kind of our story, and the rest of it I think will become clear very quickly. I'm going to now, much better to explain what we do to you is, let me show a video, and I think you'll see what empowered dialysis is. Oops. So as you can see, it's not exactly the same way that I think a majority of you have experienced in going to in-center dialysis units. The least utilized resource in healthcare, I think everybody here is aware of it, is the patient. We've been doing that for 2,000 years. And now you're going to see a radical change in that whole approach. Our results, as you'll see, are quite really astounding. And they'll say to me, well, do you have some new gadget that you found that can do things? No. Do you have some new medicine that you use? No. Well, how come your results are so dramatically better? We engaged and empowered the patient. We gave him permission. So it's a radical approach. Ben Franklin, this was a quote that this Britt Marie, Christian Farman, was the worst patient in their dialysis unit. He didn't come to his treatments, didn't take his meds, and he went to Britt Marie in Jönköping, Sweden, quite a few years ago and said, I'd like to do my own dialysis. Would you teach me how to do it? And she said, let's see, you're the worst patient in the unit, you don't do anything right, and you want me to teach you how to do it? Yeah. And of course she was extraordinary because she said, okay, sure. And he became, of course, the best patient in the unit, and now is transplanted and goes all over the world talking about empowered dialysis. So anyway, she used this and we gave talks together, and one of her quotes was from Ben Franklin, a lady from Jönköping, Sweden. So Ben Franklin's quote is, tell me and I'll forget. Teach me and maybe I'll remember. Engage and empower me and I'll change the world. So the future is bright for all of us. We're going to engage and empower, and the whole process is going to change radically, and it should. Now, if any of you in Texas, of course, we're familiar with this hunker-down approach, which is basically used in the entire country. And so it shouldn't shock any of you if I said, you're probably in a hunker-down unit. And what that means is that when you go in the unit, they tell you to sit down, put out your arm, shut up, and don't touch a thing. Don't touch anything. And you wonder why the atmosphere there is not so great. It's the patients want to get on first, the patients want to get off first, they identify any of the things that don't work. And it's kind of an ugly atmosphere, so we are not an advocate of hunker-down dialysis. We think we can do better, and I did it wrong for 40 years, so we're finally making progress. So this will require a radical change in culture. You can't continue doing hunker-down dialysis and think you're going to change to empowered dialysis. So in looking at this, you say, well, what did we offer them? We thought we were doing great stuff. And let me point out that all of the nurses and the doctors and the patient care techs and all the staff do tremendous things. They break their back every day to do the very best they can for patients. But if you have a bad workflow process that's just not the right one, it just doesn't work as well as it could or it should. And it's just a bad workflow process that we started with and we kept doing. So you say, well, in addition to getting your treatment, you get boredom, you get depression, and learned helplessness. So you come to us helpless, and we make you more helpless, telling you to sit down, shut up, and don't touch anything. What can you do then? So we'd say, when we approach patients, we say to them, well, what if you, these are the patients that we had on the wrong therapy. For brand new patients, they get this from day one in the CKD clinic. And we say, well, would you like control, freedom, and independence? Everybody says, well, yeah. And we then say, what if that gave you hope, optimism, and joy? Well, yeah. And then we start the whole discussion with the patients to say, we do home therapy, we do empowered therapy, Incenter, and we do nocturnal. All three of those will give you exactly what you want. And it's really the only way you can get a, not incremental, but dramatic decrease in dramatic decrease in mortality. The only way you can do that. The others are so incremental, it's very frustrating when you work hard and do all the things you're doing, and you get results that are just not anywhere near what you want. So again, it requires a radical change, and we've been doing this now for about a year and a half, and before that we had 10 years of teaching on quality, etc. So this is not a simple journey, but if you can't change your culture, you'll never get there. So it is not an easy step, but it's a magical step and extremely worthwhile. So here's the data, and this is for 2015, and the data for 2016 is tracks in a similar fashion. At the end of December, we had 751 patients on dialysis, and if you look at deaths, we had 95 deaths for the year. Of the empowered patients that were nocturnal home and empowered Incenter, they only had 5 deaths, 5, and there was 191 of them. Of the hunkerdown patients, 560, they had 90 deaths for a total of 95. On hospitalizations, total was 1,224. The empowered patients had 125. The hunkerdown patients had 1,099. And you'd say, well, do you think there's a difference there? Do you think that they're not exactly the same? Well, yeah. So if you looked at mortality, you'd say, well, you know, I'm in a clinic where we do the national average. Isn't it great we do the national average? Well, that's like telling your kid, well, when you go to school, I want you to get a C. Any chance you can get a C for me? That's just crazy. So if you're the national average, we think that's an embarrassment. We'd be ashamed if we were getting the national average. You look at empowered, it's 2.7%. That's not an incremental change. That is a massive shift. And we have, at this time, we have hybrid units. 10 of our units are hybrids, where we have both the hunkerdown and the empowered growing quickly. And then we have 2 units that are pure empowered, and that's where you saw the video that I showed you previously. You say, well, that mortality looks pretty good. What about hospitalizations? Hospitalizations, again, national average, we're looking for a C here. We don't want anything better than a C. 1.7 hospitalizations per patient per year. You look at empowered and it's 0.6. So if you want to live longer and if you want to stay out of the hospital, why would you do empowered therapy? I mean, why would you do hunker-down therapy? It makes no sense. Hunker-down is not a good form of therapy. And again, it's purely because it's a workflow process that is not effective. And when there's a better workflow process available, why not go to it? And that's what we did. So, and appreciate that these are all numbers, but these are all numbers of people's lives. These are all numbers of very special people that laugh and smile and cry and are sad and happy. So there are many more stories to be told about this. You say, well, what about your quality? Is your quality any good? You make the hospitalizations less and you make the mortality less, but what about your quality? So you'd say, well, you know, the government started last year to come out with quality data, and they then did it this year again, and they'll do it every year. And you'd say, well, your quality looks pretty good, I guess. We have Greenway, Belmead, Marlin, Hillsborough, Rockdale, and Waco West. So we have 6 units that are 5-star. We have Brazos and Lampasas that are 4-star, and Killeen and Temple that are 3-star. But the last 4 have come on to the empowered mode a little bit later than the early ones. Complacency is a terrible thing. We're not complacent. We also have 2 brand new units that have a small number of patients, so they don't appear on the Medicare scale. They will next year, and they're pure empowered, so they'll come on as 5 stars automatically. So our goal for next year is we want all 12 of our units to be 5-star. Why would you want to go see a doctor who's mediocre? I wouldn't. So if you're going to see somebody, why not see the best? So our approach here is pretty simple. High quality, low hospitalization rate, low mortality. We then go on to the next issue was, how did you train these people? Did you just tell them, well, you know, good luck, buddy, just go on over there and give it a try, and you know, how much can go wrong? And the answer is the patients are absolutely brilliant. And so for all those that hesitate and say, golly, you guys are so radical, you mean you let the patient get involved in this therapy? It's another pair of eyes, and it's his eyes, the person having the treatment, and guess what? He's committed. He's not there. You know, if I goof up something, well, I'm sorry I goofed it up for you, but if you goof it up, you pick it up immediately. So first of all, we come up and we say, well, why don't we make up a thing? All this stuff we did is we just made up because there is no empowered dialysis. We're the only ones, and there's one other program in Philadelphia, in America, doing this. So we made up our own manual of training, and this is just one example of how we do this. So you start out and you say, okay, you could be a beginner, intermediate, or advanced, and you go through your various 12 levels. So you show them the machine, how they do it, wash their arms, vital signs, how you string the blue line, the red line, how you pull your needles, how you clean your chair. Do you think the patients do a better job of cleaning the chair that they're going to sit in than the staff? You betcha. So anyway, self-cannulation, the whole bit. And we do a lot of buttonholes because they're really easy, and the patients love them if you have appropriate teaching and appropriate training. Anyway, having said all that, what does this all mean? Well, the patient's Phoenix meter is kind of like looks like a white remote control with a little tube on it. You pull the fluid to check conductivity. We had a problem where there were lots of them breaking because they would drop them. You say, well, who are they? All the staff, all the PCTs and nurses. So at the end of the discussion, I said, well, how many of these Phoenix meters were dropped by the empowered patients? 0. That shouldn't surprise anybody. Pulling their own needles. They never spill 1 drop of blood. They never have a problem. Not surprising. Self-cannulation. They never have a cannulation problem. So if you want to talk about really extraordinary people, the patients are extraordinary. I'm making rounds in one unit, this is a while back, about 6 months ago, and a patient says, I got a PowerPoint I want to present to you about empowered care. Now, you don't normally have a patient say, I got a PowerPoint that I want to present on empowered care. It was brilliant, genius, and he was far ahead of where we were going with ideas and thoughts. And this same guy, he and I are working together now on some of the aspects of our empowered training, like he's working on the empathy section, that your staff have to have empathy where they can sense and gauge what needs the patients have. So there are powerful things going on. On the other side of the coin, you say, well, did you ever help anybody? And the answer, of course, is, well, yeah. A couple of simple stories. We have 2 Hispanics ladies. One lady is, I'm making rounds again, great story, and she said that a while back she had gotten an infection and gangrene in her leg, and she prayed to God that she would die because she didn't want to have surgery. So she had surgery, and I guess God didn't answer her question because she didn't die. So she said, well, that's a mistake. So anyway, she said to herself, I guess God has something planned for me. So then this other Hispanic lady, she speaks no English. So she's on the other side of the unit crying. So the staff bring the Hispanic lady that speaks no English next to the other Hispanic lady that speaks English and Spanish. And they both together learn how to do empowered dialysis. And they're the happiest people in the clinic. They do it great. It all goes smoothly. And these stories like this continue on and on. It's very collaborative, a lot of buddy system, a lot of stuff of sharing where the patients will say, let me show you how to string the red or the blue line, or how to use the Phoenix meter, how to draw up your heparin, how to return your blood, et cetera, et cetera. So as you can imagine, the staff, I think, had a harder time handling this approach than the patients. The patients were very enthusiastic. Patients are smart, patients are bright, patients are committed. We had a retarded lady at one of the clinics, and so they didn't want to let her do anything as far as empowered, and everybody else was pulling their needles around her, so she got mad, and after enough commotion, they said, well, okay, heck, we'll try. And she's one of the best people at pulling her needles of anybody. So just because there are limitations, or just because there are weaknesses, everybody, we can find something they can do empowering, meaning from the standpoint of philosophical, that doing one little tiny thing makes you feel better about yourself, gives you a better sense of self-esteem. So our empowered manual continues to grow. It's about, I guess the size of a large binder now, and our training program is getting better and better. But it's because we've morphed into the patients and staff are kind of coming together. Another story, one of the new staff is hired, and they come over, the nurse sends them over and says, you know, this is a great place, because I was in the unit, I was learning how to build the machine, and one of the empowered patients came over and said, I see you're having trouble there getting those lines in, let me show you how to do it correctly. Most dialysis units don't have patients coming over to show you how to do it, but we think that's a good thing. Very, very important to not leave the, that it's only dialysis. There's also something very important to talk about, which is the CKD portion. And there's a lot of literature that says high hospitalization rate, high mortality, first 4 months of dialysis. And that's kind of analogous to saying football teams that have no practice and no plan don't do real good in the football games. Well, yeah, you get slaughtered, you'll never win a game. Well, we didn't prepare people adequately in our CKD program. So basically they were starting out from scratch like good luck buddy, and high mortality, high hospitalization rate. And if you change the world and you put machines in all the exam rooms and all sorts of charts and pictures and take them on tours of the unit where they become educated, it'll absolutely change the whole way that things occur. So here's, again, data showing you, this is for 2000, we did this only in the north because we were trying to figure out how to do stuff. Because again, all this stuff we're doing is a concept of innovation, quality improvement. This is not research, this is quality improvement, this is workflow process. How do you make the workflow process better? So we put 39 patients in the north on dialysis from our outpatient clinic, where you come as a patient to say, I've got a GFR of 30 or 25 or 20, and you're progressively going to lose kidney function and need to start dialysis sometime in the future. So for all these people progressively losing function, they would eventually went on dialysis, and we offered them nocturnal, home, or empowered Incenter. 24 said yes, and they took it. 15, they got all that education and everything else, but for whatever reason, they just weren't receptive to the idea. So that's okay, but it's better than where we were. The amazing thing, and I didn't have to do any statistics to figure this one out, the total deaths for the year were 0. So you think, well, wait a minute, what happened to the high mortality, high hospitalization rate? Well, if you prepare the patients properly, it goes away. Same thing with hospitalizations, you had 11 for the year. And you say, well, you should have had a ton. Well, we had 4 for the year for the empowered people. We had 7 for the hunkerdowns. So even though the hunkerdowns, I guess they must have been listening to something we were talking about, so everybody did well. And that's the experience we've had. Everybody started as an outpatient. Everybody started, I should say all of the empowered started as an outpatient. They already had their fistula in a functional fistula that we could cannulate. And the PD patients already had a PD line in, so outpatient start, and avoid the hospital. Everybody here knows hospitals are not good places. They're dangerous places. Avoid them like crazy, because if you have to go, that's one thing, but try to stay. Our whole point in the outpatient clinic is preserve renal function, but if you're going to lose function, we're going to do everything we can to keep you healthy. So what's the take home from what I've talked about today? And everybody feel comfortable asking me questions, because what I'm showing you should give you some sense of revolution, some sense that when you go back to your home base, I'm supposed to tell you, well, go back and be real nice and say, oh yeah, it was a very nice meeting. Go back and tell them, say, listen, I'm tired of this. I don't want this hunker down anymore. I want empowered dialysis, and I'm tired of this crap, and I'm not taking it anymore. If you won't say it, who will? You are the most powerful people in the country. They listen to patients. Patients are more powerful than doctors, nurses, lobbyists, you name it. You guys are the most powerful people in the world. So anyway, now some people are comfortable and some people are uncomfortable. Now the patients are obviously comfortable saying, well, hot diggity, I got a way that I can change everything and dramatically improve my health, and that's powerful. Now, for us in the industry, obviously, that are doctors or nurses or PCTs or administrators or business people or whatever in the industry, we're uncomfortable because you're telling us that there's something else available that's better. There's something else available, and I should comment, you'd say, well, how many times have the patient screwed things up and something bad's happened? And this is, time will tell, but zero. The patients are brilliant, they're smart, they're talented, they're extraordinarily gifted. You guys know that. So giving control and joy back to the patient, that seems like a good idea. Dramatically decreasing the hospitalization rate and mortality, that seems like a good idea. Dramatically increasing the quality at your clinic. Everybody here should go back and say, we expect our clinics to be 5-star. Every day, every time, every patient. Why? Well, why would we want anything less? You don't say, well, I'm going out and buy a new car and say, I'm going to buy the crummiest car I can find. That's crazy. So your bar should be raised to the highest level as your expectation, saying, I want the best, and it should be the best for everybody all the time. And finally, these are my heroes. These are the people that have changed the world forever, at least our world. And for these people, all I can tell you is that they do things better, sharper, quicker, faster. They're brilliant. So that's our story. God bless you. Thanks very much. Sure. There will be one coming up shortly. I'm not the most, technologically oriented person. And so we're going to have an empowered dialysis website shortly. And then in addition to that, you can, we're going to begin a YouTube channel where we take videos of the patients using Phoenix meter, drawing up heparin, stringing the machine, returning their blood, using the Phoenix meter, etc. Let's see, I'll get a list of everybody here, and Diana. I'm sorry? Oh, say it again? The AAKP, yeah, that's right. Okay, thank you. I knew there was an answer. So I told you guys were brilliant. Go ahead.
Is there, have you had hi, enjoyed your talk very much. I enjoyed your talk very much. Have you talked to the large dialysis organizations about adapting your program? That would, I think I could see this in a lot of the units that I go to that are owned by one of the large centers.
I think that the answer is yes. They've had exposure to this, and I think you have to, if anybody that's associated with a large dialysis unit, and we are associated with a large dialysis unit, and we've been with them for 40 years, so it's kind of like being married. There are good years and there's bad years. But anyway, obviously we like them. I think you have to be fair and appreciate the fact that if you're a large dialysis unit, they move in a more lumbering manner. And the reason why, it's true for all of them. It's like General Motors, IBM, General Electric. They all move more slowly because they have so much stuff that they have to manage and take care of. I think this will come, but obviously the smaller dialysis companies will, I think, be more receptive because they can move in a quicker fashion. So yes, I think there's interest under both of the large dialysis organizations. But as I say, I think you have to be fair with them and say it may take a while because there's so many levels they have to go through to make sure that if they do it, it's done correctly, et cetera. So yes, we have.
Great. Go ahead, ma'am. You can answer. You had a question, right?
Yes.
Go ahead. Go ahead. Yeah.
Dr. Gibney,
Yeah.
it was a stellar presentation,
Thank you. Thank you.
but I did not hear anything about peritoneal dialysis. A patient who does peritoneal dialysis or who did peritoneal dialysis, is that patient considered an empowered patient?
The answer is yes. Home therapy, as you can tell, that peritoneal, the way our group has been evolved is we have various people that are focused on various forms of therapy. Anyway, the PD program is obviously growing much more quickly. And thanks for asking the question. We started with our home therapy, and we were at 3%. 3% is pretty pathetic. Does everybody not think 3% is pretty bad? So we're now up to 10%. Our goal is to get to 30%, and we have had some, I guess you'd call it, structural problems that we've just, I think, fixed with staffing, et cetera. And we expect to be at 250 to 300 patients on home therapy within the next 2 or 3 years. So we think home therapy is the best. As far as peritoneal dialysis, we think we have a much better program now. Right now, it's kind of 50-50. We're sort of an aberration. We're 50-50 with home hemo and with PD. We think that we can do a better job with PD, so that's one of our weaknesses. So we expect to have an explosion in peritoneal dialysis. We expect to be able to, we just got a surgeon who can place PD catheters where they work every time they put them in, so that's a much more easy process for us. So all those things are being put in place, so 250, 300 patients, and we think we can get to 50% on home therapy. And when I say home therapy, both peritoneal dialysis and hemo, and I think that PD will take off and be the dominant form of home therapy 2 or 3 years from now for us.
The reason why I asked was 10 years ago, I did peritoneal dialysis. And I did it for 6 months. And I was one of the fortunate ones who received a transplant. So I'm a transplant patient for 10 years. July 9th was the 10th anniversary of the transplant. And I found peritoneal dialysis very good. I was trained before. I had the option, he sent me, of visiting the centers where both types of dialysis was done. Then I made the choice, and the doctor had told me that I was a good patient to do peritoneal dialysis, but it was up to me whether I wanted to do peritoneal dialysis. And I chose to do that because it was I would say the hunker down in terms of hemodialysis. And I could not stomach that. But peritoneal was fine with me, and the training was good. On the other hand, my brother, he was an empowered patient, and he did hemodialysis.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking the question, but yeah, it's the good, the bad, and the ugly, and PD is one of our weaknesses now, and we think that we're going to fix that quickly, and you'll see, you have to see an explosion of home therapy. Why? Because if the patients, first of all, in the outpatient CKD program, I mean, you hear this all the time. In our place, you don't hear it anymore, but I'm having a meeting, this was a year ago. We have patient reps that meet every month that give us great ideas on what to do. We have patients that come to our quality meetings every month that give us great ideas on what to do. The staff were not too crazy about patients coming to the quality meetings. And I told them, I said, it's only going to improve the professionalism of what we do. The patients are bright, they're talented. So we use the patient, we're trying to push patients into every single corner and nook and cranny of what we do, because there's a lot of places where we just forget they should be there. There's nothing secret or sacred or holy about the quality meeting. We want them there, and we're now in a program that we just started where the patient runs his own care plan. we don't run it anymore. I mean, we're obviously teaching them how to do it, but the patient should run the care plan, not us. So we have to teach them how to do that. And again, there's pushback from that, but that's okay. We'll get through that. So same thing for your peritoneal dialysis. We'll fix that problem, and it'll become the dominant form of home therapy. Next.
Hi, I'm Dory Chettel. I run the Medical Education Institute, and Medicare pays for dialysis. Most of you all probably know that. And because Medicare pays, Medicare writes the rules. And the rules are called the conditions for coverage for dialysis facilities. And in the conditions for coverage, there's a whole section on patient rights. And it is sadly very short. And Medicare doesn't really give you very many rights. But one of the rights you have is to be as involved in your care as you want to be, up to and including learning self-care and putting in your own needles. So even if you are in a hunker-down unit, you have rights. Those rights should be posted on the wall of the facility if you are in a facility. And you have the right to make sure that those are enforced. And so programs like Dr. Gibney's, I hope will spread far and wide. This is exactly what I would love to see dialysis doing. But even right now, where you are, wherever you are, you have the right. So I wanted y'all to know that.
Let me comment on that. When we do our care plans, there's a there's a pack about this long of social worker, dietitian, doctor, clinical manager, blah, blah, blah. So one day I said, does anybody here, we were all together in all the different dimensions of care. I said, is there something wrong with this? And they said, well, yeah, there's no section for the patient. Does that not strike you as being insane? So we just made up a sheet of paper, and now there's a patient section, and they can write down whatever they want, and they get notified before the meeting so they can write down stuff and be prepared. So Dory's right. The way we're going, it should be a patient-centered modality because it gets better if it's the patient run, and all you need to do is educate your patients so they know what's going on, and they'll be brilliant at helping to make it a better place. Next.
Yes, back here. This way.
Okay.
I'm a stable CKD stage 3 patient, so I don't know anything about dialysis except how to pronounce the words. What are the barriers that keep over 50% of the patients from doing their dialysis at home?
Well, I'll give you my personal opinion. Number one, the patient has to be aware that it's a available therapy. So one day, again, we're in a patient meeting. This was a couple of years ago, and I'm talking to, these are senior patients that are in our dialysis units that have met together to go over what we're going to do differently and new. So I'm going blah, blah, blah. And I says, it's kind of like putting you on a next stage. And they all together said, what's the next stage? I said, what? They said, we've never heard of that. So I guess the beginning is the education program. Now, if you're CKD3 and you're stable and you're never going to progress, and you come to, and the doctor should be able to figure that out. And so for us, an example would be, let's say you have high blood pressure only and your blood pressure is well controlled and you've been with us for 5 years, et cetera, and your kidney function's stable and doing well, then we're probably going to say, we're going to preserve kidney function, you're going to be fine. And I don't have to talk about dialysis. Now, on the other hand, we have a extremely comprehensive education program in the outpatient arena. So the first thing is education to say, here's all the stuff we do. When we have a PD machine and an X-Stage machine and a Fresenius T machine and pictures of putting in fistulas and buttonholes and pictures of everything in all the rooms. And you'd say, oh, why would you do that? That must be very scary. Well, it's scary if you don't know. So if you keep it hidden and say, I heard that some guy had to start dialysis and his head fell off. Well, that's just crazy. Well, that's just crazy. That's just crazy. So why don't you educate them and tell them what the truth is? So our education program has become extremely expansive compared to before when we didn't do anything. The tour of the units for people that we have a thing where basically if your GFR is at 30, you get education with progressive loss of function. At 20, we consider you for access, and then at 10, you start dialysis, just as a guideline. Not true for everybody because you have to put the clinical story with that. But the education stuff is critical, and if you don't have education, how would the patient ever know? So that's a massive new part of what we do. We spend a ton of time on education. We spend a ton of time, so many examples, patients that come all by themselves to see the doctor. Their families don't have a clue what's going on. So we invite the families to come in, and it's powerful to have the families come in and help to make decisions. So there's 10,000 things you can do. That's just one. From my standpoint, if you're not going to do that, it's really difficult. There are obviously lots of other barriers. Hunker down, I'm amazed that anybody that goes home in a hunker down mentality, when you're told to sit down, shut up, and don't touch anything, how in the hell is that going to help you go home? Whereas we do the opposite. We want you to do everything where you kind of think, you say to us, and they do, I'm doing so much already, I don't even know why I'm here. And you can imagine, it used to take us this is for hemodialysis, it used to take us 6 to 8 weeks to train somebody for home hemo. It takes us now 7 to 10 days. They already know how to do everything. The home people are just shocked when the people come in and are quicker and faster than they are. So the patients are brilliant. So I think so I'd say the main barrier, or to start with one of the main ones, would be we need better education programs and better workflow processes. And as we get those, all those barriers will go away.
Good morning, Doctor. That was, first of all, thank you for what you're doing in Texas. It's just incredible. I appreciate that. So I've been on dialysis for 16 years, various home methods for 15, but I've been empowered for 10, and that's when I got to your step 12 and cannulated and went home. So when I watched that movie, just like what you were saying in the last question here, it almost seemed that, the young man doing his job and just taking care of everything, it seemed like you are ready for your step 13, and that is going home. For those that can, I understand there are barriers and other ways that don't include, cannulating and setting up your machine. But it would seem like now, since you've adopted the empowered patient technique, over the next 5 to 10 years, that curve would go up for your at home, because they're ready to walk out the door and open up a machine in their house. So I just wanted to hear what your plans were for transitioning to home.
Yeah, thank you for asking, because you're exactly correct. Our plan is never to build another dialysis unit again, ever. And we probably set our bar too low. We have now about 80 patients on home therapy, and so we thought if we got to 250 to 300, that'd be pretty good. We think we can be more like 400 to 500 because, for example, there are about maybe 10 people in the world right now that are working on patient-friendly machines. And these are machines that are about a third of the size of the Fresenius T. They have like an iPad, something similar to an iPad on top of them. You can't make a mistake. It takes the patient about 10 minutes to set up. These are going to be spectacular machines. The only one I know right now on the market is Next Stage, obviously, which is fabulous. But there's a whole bunch more that you'll see in the next few years that'll be patient-friendly, and so that'll help everybody go home. So I think we need to raise the bar higher to 400 to 500 patients on home. And you're absolutely correct. This is pure joy that the patients, we now have a waiting list because, again, we have to hire more staff for both the peritoneal and the hemo approach to train efficiently, because we now have a waiting list for people to go home because our staff can't handle the load right now. We've never had a waiting list before of people that were ready to go, and then that's a good thing. That's what, when it's not, well, it's a bad thing, meaning we should be able to train immediately, but it's a good thing from the standpoint that everybody's ready to start going home, and they've gotten the idea that home therapy is extraordinarily powerful. I mean, it shouldn't shock anybody, the results we got in center. All we did was do in-center home dialysis. That's all we did. So the results speak for themselves. But yeah, we're raising the bar, and we're going to go after it in a much more efficient and a much grander fashion. Thank you.
Thank you. So if everyone could please thank Dr. Gibney. And our board member, Suzanne Ruff, has an awesome idea.
Dr. Gibney told us we all had power as patients. Everyone in this room, if you're with a younger person and you're not sure how, you should use hashtag AAKP 2016 and write, "Don't be a hunker-down dialysis patient," and put it out on your Facebook and tweet it, because you have power with your social media.
Thank you. So we've got a short break until our next session. Thank you, everyone.